So I'm working on the Crossrail project as part of London Underground, and we're looking at all the works that sort of connect with London Underground stations, which is quite complicated if you imagine building new stuff and bolting it on to some of the old stuff that we have. And it's really interesting because you get to see how you shape London, which is not a job you can sort of claim with you know, on other engineering projects, and it's really exciting. So I chose maths and physics at A-level, and I really enjoyed them as subjects. So I thought, how can I, you know, mould the two together? And it turns out engineering is a great way. A teacher of mine, she was actually a big influence in choosing civil engineering because she came from a background which had a lot of conflict. And one thing she told me was that civil engineering can help build things up again after a disaster is struck. And the influence that civil engineering has on society is one of the reasons I got into it. And London Underground is a perfect way of doing that because we help millions of people make journeys every day, and that's something to be proud of.
So we can see that Crossrail is underway here, so could you give us a little bit more information about the Crossrail project?
Well, Crossrail is a new line that's being built from west to east, so taking all the people that live in the suburbs and connecting them into central London. So it goes out to Reading in the west and Shenfield and Abbey Wood in the east. Also has connections to Heathrow, so you can get to and from really quickly. It is tunnelling, the central bit in central London is tunnelling deep underneath everything that already exists in London, so it's quite complicated in terms of like you've got the tube under there. And
that must be quite complicated.
Yeah.
Maze down there.
Exactly, like there are lots of things on the ground which you don't even think are there, so stuff like water pipes and services, electricity cables and all sorts of stuff, so it gets quite complicated at times, moving in and out. So.
You can see all this going on behind us here, so I was wondering if as a project engineer you actually have any involvement in the actual construction and the scary ladders over there.
Yeah, sometimes I do get to go on site, but to be honest, it's quite exciting to just see stuff happening. It can be scary at times if you're going up, you know, small ladders or at height, but it's all safe, don't worry. The coolest part about working on an underground project is that sometimes you get to go down the tunnels, and behind me at Liverpool Street is as deep as 30 metres, and it's the deepest part of Crossrail. The first time I went down, it was amazing. You couldn't believe that people could build such massive structures underground, and once you came up again, no one had even known where you'd been, so it was kind of like you'd been to a place which was kind of secret, which was really cool.
So with all this work going on so far underground, how do you actually stop the ground just caving in?
That's a really good question, Lily. If you're building a massive hole in the ground, you can imagine that all the ground wants to do is just start collapsing in on itself. But actually the shape of the tunnel is something that engineers calculate, and it's this shape which is really strong. If you build like a concrete structure in this shape, the weight of the ground and everything that it's supporting transfers its weight around that structure. Also, if you see the buildings behind me, they're really old and weren't designed to have tunnels running underneath them. So what engineers do is drill massive tubes into the ground and inject that with a substance called a grout. Now this grout expands, and you end up compensating for the fact that you're causing the ground to move. And what you don't want to happen is for like the building to start moving independently of its part, so you end up with cracking and stuff. So as you can see, these buildings look absolutely fine, so it's been really successful on this project. So my piece of advice to you, if you're interested in engineering, is to just ask as many engineers as you can about what they do. Find out what it is that makes you excited and makes you ask questions about how things work, and I'm sure you'll find your way.